Bienvenidos, worldwide fans of the planet hottest entertainment with an edge. Jaime En Fuego here, and welcoming you back to my namesake program, Enfuegotainment, for a Retro Fuego review, which, yes, I normally put these up on Thursdays when I do actually reach back and examine something that is many decades old, but with the new Dune trailer for Denis Villeneuve's upcoming film that is still slated for December 18th, but I have a sneaking suspicion it is going to be bumped, just like so many other major releases here in the dire year that has been 2020. But nonetheless, we got our first teaser well, not even a teaser, it's like 3 minutes, man. And yes, Cecil and myself reacted to it on the Horror Show channel, but since we have such a clogged schedule, there is no possible way that we could fit in reviews of the previous attempts to adapt Dune, which there was the 1984 film, David Lynch, and there was also an extended edition that added like 40 minutes of additional footage, if I'm not mistaken, bumped the runtime up to nearly 3 hours, and I actually, for the first time in ages, watched both versions. There were also the 2000s, sometime in the mid-2000s, if I recall correctly, that the Sci-Fi channel did both Dune and Children of Dune. I think it was John Harrison that did the first one. But in any event, I will be getting to those at some other point down the road, but I just really wanted to revisit the original that I didn't remember shit about, like, at all. I didn't remember any of this movie, aside from the fact that Toto did the score, I think Brian Eno, doing a particular movement in the film, and then Sting being in it, Kyle MacLachlan, obviously, David Lynch directing, but I saw this film when I was really young. I was probably 12, 13, about the same time that I first read the book, and Dune is some dense stuff, man, as far as just, the warring faction families and all of these different things. So a lot of it went over my head. I did enjoy the messianic, religious symbolism and those connotations and stuff like that. But Dune is dense, man. And at that young age, I just wasn't ready for it. I was still reading like, Christopher Pike, The Last Vampire, pulpy, horror stuff, and, just very heady science fiction, whether it was, Heinlein or even, I guess Bradbury's a little bit more accessible, but like Asimov and things like that. I mean, Asimov and Herbert were the two that I struggled with at a younger age, and so this was a very fascinating revisit, I must admit. So the extended edition, just to give some clarification, I guess it was made for TV, and David Lynch didn't have anything to do with that particular editing process. And he has gone on record, even though he doesn't like talking about his 1984 adaptation of Dune, he has gone on record to say that it was the most excruciatingly painful process in his directorial career. There was so much pressure involved. Dino De Laurentiis, who did a bunch of Stephen King adaptations in the 80s, and I think he also did stuff like Conan, and he did Army of Darkness later on. I think he also did Evil Dead 2 from the production standpoint. But yeah, Dino was really into it, and the entire De Laurentiis family was really into doing this sort of pulpy genre filmmaking, whether it was, sci-fi, fantasy, horror, they were really into it. And after the previous attempt from Jodorowsky being the closest that we got to a Dune film actually happening, which is a fantastic documentary. I need to do like a full proper review of that at some particular point. But that had H.R. Giger and Pink Floyd, and I mean, we were talking like casting Orson Welles and Mick Jagger, and it was a very fascinating process, but that didn't end up happening. So it finally came to task with Dino producing, and I think some of the rest of his family involved as well on the EP and financing standpoint. But yeah, David Lynch doing it, and yeah, it's a weird movie, I must admit. So the extended edition, which is credited to Alan Smithee, which is apparently some like industry thing where when directors want their name removed, it's like a pseudonym of sorts that they utilize. And so the extended cut that I mentioned, which adds all that extra footage to it, and also so it changes from the Emperor's Daughter, played by Virginia Madsen, narrating like in the theatrical version. There's like this older dude, I'm not sure who that particular character is. And one thing to just lay out plain and clear, I'm like a casual Dune fan, okay? So I really like the property, but I am not deeply entrenched in the lore. I haven't read any of the later books, like I never read Dune Messiah or, Heretics or Children or any of that stuff, but I did really like both miniseries on the Sci-Fi channel, and I still have a soft spot for this original film, hence the excitement about Denis' new version. But I haven't read like Brian and Kevin's new stuff, and yet I'm intrigued to upon this revisit. Like, my interest in Dune has been legit reinvigorated, and at this point I'm fervent and very hungry to just go through the entirety of the books. Maybe even there's a graphic novel that's coming later this year that I'm stoked to check out. I mean, I'm very into it, and I mean, it's very timely, obviously. But yeah, so I must admit though that the extended edition, while it gives a lot more context with the additional narration from the older gentleman, he says like backgrounds about this character and that character and so on and so forth, and so you understand a lot more of the lore from the book, I would imagine, and there's those great illustrations that open up the extended edition. But really, after watching both back-to-back on Thursday and Friday evening respectively, right after the new trailer dropped for the 2020 version, I must admit that I think I like the theatrical version better despite less context. I mean, it's good that I watched the extended edition and was reminded about a significant amount of the lore, and it's almost like the director's cut of Donnie Darko versus the theatrical, in the fact that, yes, it's cool to have the additional context and explanation, but it really feels in a similar fashion, like with the extended edition here, that it's almost like spoon-feeding you, like a baby, the information if you just can't figure it out. Now, that's not to say that the original Dune is a great film, but it definitely has great moments. I really like Kyle MacLachlan in his first pairing with David Lynch before he would go on to do Twin Peaks with him. But yeah, this was Kyle's theatrical film debut, and even though, yes, he's definitely older than the way Paul, who goes on to be Muad'Dib, is described in the book, and a lot of people are saying, yeah, Timothée Chalamet, I mean, he's like what's supposed to be in the book, like 14-ish, 15, something like that. He's supposed to be a younger teenager. Kyle definitely, he looks like a dude in his 20s, the end product, I guess, and yet, I don't know, I'm not as jazzed about Chalamet and also Zendaya playing his love interest. That is very much, in my estimation, casting for younger kids to get them on board for this. Everybody else involved, whether it's Rebecca Ferguson, Oscar Isaac, Josh Brolin, Javier Bardem, I mean, that is an incredible cast. Jason Momoa as Idaho. I mean, yeah, I'm very much into all of the casting on that new version, aside from yeah. But in any event, that's not what I'm talking about today, and I keep getting sidetracked, so if you're still on board and still hanging for my thoughts, gracias very much. But yeah, the theatrical version of Lynch's Dune, I definitely prefer, and call me crazy, but I feel like there was more worm shots in the theatrical one. I don't know, I mean, that maybe I'm mistaken, and I mean, just 3 hours of going through something versus like a little over 2 hours, like 2:15 or whatever, if you include the end credits and stuff. But the set design is tremendous in this. The costuming is tremendous in this, in both versions, both the theatrical and the extended. That is definitely one thing that, this came out in 1984, and it was legit trying to be the next Star Wars. It's very obvious, they were trying to just continue on that fascination with, just another galaxy, universe, whatever, where there was just, deep mythology, and yet you can definitely tell whether it's the use of the voice, which is very much like, like a Jedi mind trick sort of situation. The fact that, Paul becomes this messianic savior, against a oppressive, just like big imperial, just corporate evil empire of sorts, with the Emperor, and the Emperor, secretly wanting the Harkonnens to, like eliminate House Atreides because of the fact that they're gaining too much respect and recognition and all this other stuff. So you can most definitely tell that George Lucas did more than borrow from Dune. I mean, he was legit majorly inspired with a lot. I mean, Skywalker is in many ways, Luke Skywalker being in many ways very much like Paul. So while performances are good in this, despite some legit over-the-topness from like Sting and I forget the name of the actor who plays the Baron Harkonnen, but he is just ridiculous. You've also got, I mean, there are so many big-time players in this movie. Max von Sydow, who is, this like emissary who's been on the Arrakis so long that he's even developed the blue eyes from just the spice exposure and stuff like that. And obviously Patrick Stewart being in this. You've got Brad Dourif, as this nefarious, just kind of side henchman to the Baron Harkonnen dude. And the cast is terrific in this. I really enjoy pretty much everybody. I forgot Sean Young was Kyle's love interest in this. That shows that, I mean, once again, I hadn't seen this movie in like over 20 years, probably more like 25 years. I saw it when I was like 11 or 12. 36 years old. I mean, yeah, man, it's been nearly 30 years since I saw this, and I really did not remember much at all. But it's very interesting how Denis film is very much paying homage to this original with the costuming, the suits that they wear on Arrakis. They look pretty much the same, man, and from the little nose things and everything to the recycling aspect, the black color of everything, and I would imagine that that's how they have been described in the book. And once again, I don't remember the book, man. It's been so friggin' long, but to try to at least wrap this up in some sort of frame of mind with all the jumping around that I've done, everybody, the worst thing about this, and the reason that it failed at the box office, I think in North America it only did around 30 million and the budget was like 40. It was a critical and a financial success overseas, so I know in Europe and like Japan, for instance, it was much more successful than it was here in the States, but it was a box office bomb in a lot of ways, as it was described. And so that's really regrettable because, well, yes, some of the worst faults of this film are the lack of explanation and how the casual viewer would have been very lost in a lot of ways, especially with just lore and mythology, as I said, that is so dense and so deep in this world, and there's a lot that is skimmed over. I feel like the second half of the film especially, it doesn't really develop the love story as well as it could have, and the montage-y training segments, it's like all of a sudden we're here and there's conflict and so on and so forth, and I think that that's probably... We're hopeful that this new version is a success because of the fact that it's apparently only half of the novel. So there's a reason why the Sci-Fi Channel version, especially if you get the director's cut, was like 4.5 hours because of the fact that there is so much ground to cover and so much that goes on, with just Paul and obviously just lately Jessica, his mother, and what ends up the fate of his father, and treachery and all of this different intrigue that's transpiring within the narration here. I can definitely see why a lot of critics and just like casual film goers and fans of sci-fi felt lost. Now, I would imagine the hardcore Dune fans who were had waited like 20 years, because I think the original book was, 65? The original just hardcore Dune fans, the Herbert heads or whatever, were just like, it's about goddamn time, and since they understood everything already, they were probably much more forgiving of this film than I think just, the random film goer would have been. And so, yeah, I feel like this film is definitely misunderstood. I'm glad that I have this Steelbook edition with both versions, because there is definitely additional context and some cool stuff that is given in the extended, I think it's the extended TV version, which is basically here. But really, for my money and for what I feel like is just more of a clear, concise, complete vision, despite its many, many flaws. Lynch's theatrical version is my preferred installment in this, and I will most definitely, it's like a 3 out of 5, maybe more like 3.5. It is definitely a bueno film, as I like to designate stuff here, but it's definitely not Fuego. It's not 4 out of 5. So that is my thoughts, everybody, on Dune, the extended edition versus the original. The extended edition, like I said, it adds some interesting additional insight, but really at the end of the day, I feel like the theatrical version is the superior product. Yes, it's kind of jonky and wonky in its narration and so much that goes unexplained, but between how beautifully it's shot, between the costuming and a great performance from Kyle and a just very solid supporting cast, I really think that revisiting this or checking it out for the first time would be a wise move, for all of you who are excited about this new 2020 version. So, I've been Jaime En Fuego. Y'all can find more on all social media sectors like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, here on the YouTubes. And yes, a like, a share, and a subscribe is greatly appreciated. I will be revisiting the Sci-Fi Channel Director's Cut version of John Harrison's Dune from the 2000s, and I will also be reviewing the sequel, Children of Dune, that starred Susan Sarandon Landon and a young James McAvoy, so look forward to that. And I'm gonna go through the book, man. It is about damn time for me to look at it through my 30-something-year-old eyes instead of my young, naive, and just less sharpened mindset that I was at when I first checked out the tome that is Frank Herbert's Dune. So yes, there is cool stuff to look forward to, but if you like hardcore horror and just spectacular scarific shizzle, you need to jump over to youtube.com/The Horror Show channel. That's where myself and Cecil, the creator and the showrunner over there, I am a producer with him, but yeah, that's where we did a trailer reaction to the upcoming film and gave our thoughts about it, very excited ones as well. So jump over there, and in the month of October, I believe it is, we are going to be reviewing an entire series that was most definitely inspired, at least by the wormy aspect of Dune, and that is the Tremors series, so look forward to that in October. But yeah, we do new videos every single day, so jump over there, check that out, like, share, subscribe, do all the goodness, and yeah, that's gonna be it for my ramblings on Dune, the extended edition versus theatrical. So I've been Fuego, y'all have been Rad Status, and until the real of Ka comes around once more, hasta luego, Cinemigos, constant readers and viewers alike. I appreciate you taking the time to hear my thoughts on this one, and I'm hopeful that we share more of this film palaver sooner rather than later. And until then, stay home, stay safe, and yeah, if you can find this one, definitely check it out. Dune for the win.